when we talk about the court system, guys, again, it's civil law and criminal law. So civil law is between people, right? Between individuals. Suing the hotel chain, that's civil law. Okay. So that type of litigation. Now, who is going to prosecute you in a criminal law? In a criminal case? The state. Okay, the state is going to persecute you. Persecute, prosecute. Okay, it's going to prosecute you. Okay, so that's where you get your trial courts. Okay, in some cases you can ask for a jury. In other cases, you may not ask for a jury, where the judge will just hear the facts and make a decision. Okay. Generally, in cases in what the Constitution says, cases involving more than $20, you can request a jury. Okay. Generally, you don't, though, for small claims type stuff. Okay. If any guys ever watch Judge Judy? Yeah. Okay, that's small claims court. So those people agree to give up a jury. They agree to put their stupid cases on TV and make a lot of themselves look like idiots on there. Okay, not always, but sometimes. We've had some good judge shows like that. She's not the first. She's about the fifth. Okay, but yeah. So you get a verdict or a decision in the case. Okay. And then original jurisdiction over the case really matters. Yeah. Hey, John. How you doing, man? Okay. Good to see you. Okay. Hang in there, man. Good to see you. Says he could come back in about 2 weeks.
2 more weeks?
Let's get some files and stuff. I know. You get a different sub every day?
The last 2 weeks were consistent, and this week it's been a new sub every day.
It was Mr. Sunquist for a while.
Today it's Mr. Holman. So.
Mr. Sunquist is usually like the long term.
He can't do it because he's now back in school.
He's like the building sub.
He does special ed.
Yeah, he's special ed.
They pay a little bit more too.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, shoot. He's up on his feet. That's a good thing. Yeah. He does look like he's aged.
It's so hard because when we left for Christmas break, he had like his black eyes, and then we heard that and like.
Sucks getting old.
Stress are one of the things that mess you up too. It's your brain.
That's tough, man. Okay, so original just means that who's going to hear the initial case depends on the parties involved. What is that issue? If it's an issue dealing with the Constitution, it always starts over here. Okay. If it's a criminal case, it's almost always going to be over here unless you commit a federal crime. Okay. So, like bank robbery, assaulting a postal worker, these sorts of things. Mail fraud. Okay. Bank fraud. Those are federal type cases. Okay. Okay. Then you have appeals courts. And you guys remember when I talked about this, okay? So these lower courts down here are triers of fact. And then these up here are triers of law. Okay, so they make sure that these cases were run correctly, that the trials were run correctly. They don't look at the facts. The facts are determined down here. So you're appealing a decision based on you didn't get a fair trial. Something went wrong. Okay. Those are appellate courts. Okay. So appellate courts examine the transcript so they can read the facts of the case because they're given the transcript from the trial court. Okay. In order to take that case, they ask for a writ of certiorari to send them the case on appeal. Okay? Guys, one thing I learned by reading this morning that I didn't know was that everybody is due at least one appeal. You're guaranteed at least one appeal. Now, death penalty cases, you are given multiple appeals. Okay, and I don't know if you saw this in the newspaper this week, but the Carr brothers, another one of their appeals for the death penalty case, was denied by the state Supreme Court. Okay, so they're running out of their appeals. Eventually, the governor of Kansas will decide, are we actually going to execute these two guys? Okay, when they exhaust all their appeals. Okay, we give special, because the government's going to put somebody to death, want to make sure, you know what I mean? And so they allow them to exhaust multiple appeals. Okay, now after that, let's say you have a court case down here and you appeal it here. You can appeal to the state Supreme Court. They don't have to take the case. Okay, you guaranteed one appeal here. Okay, if you're found guilty or what have you. Yeah.
When you say one appeal or multiple appeals, is it like multiple appeals based on something else? Is that what you mean?
Or no, not necessarily. So I didn't get a fair trial here. I feel like, so I'm going to appeal. This court says, no, the trial was fair. We're going to let that stand. Well, you can appeal that decision. Now, whether they take the case or not is up to them. So at the state Supreme Court level, it depends on the state. There's 3 or 4 of the justices on the Supreme Court decide. For the U.S. Supreme Court, it's the rule of 4. If 4 of the 9 justices want to hear that appeal, they'll take the case. Okay. So you're guaranteed one. Okay. All right. Appellate briefs are just briefs are written documents, okay, that you send to the court to read. So these are your arguments. Why this was not a fair trial. Here's why this was unfair. My court-appointed lawyer fell asleep. I did not get a fair trial. I did not have adequate representation. Please overturn that decision. Send it back for a retrial. Okay. All right. Turn the page. We go to the federal court system, which we've already kind of done. Okay. So you got federal district courts, 94 of them. We have one in Wichita. Federal appeals courts, 13 circuits, divided up, the country's divided up into 13 circuits geographically. We are in the 10th circuit, which is in Denver. Okay. And these courts are important, guys. For instance, in New York, the state of New York, the governor of the state of New York, the former governor resigned. Cuomo, sex scandal, okay? Did you guys know the last 3 governors of New Jersey have all resigned from office over sex scandal? The last 3, okay? So the lieutenant governor of New York, she took over for Cuomo, and she put in a mask mandate for the state of New York. So that everybody has to wear a mask indoor. Well, guys, the state Supreme Court of New York ruled yesterday she doesn't have the power to do that. Okay? These courts matter. Okay? When the president decides to do something, a federal judge can stop it at any of these levels. The federal judge can put an injunction in and say, Mr. President, you don't have the power to do that. Okay? Now, the best example I like to use on this, guys, is Andrew Jackson. You've heard of the Trail of Tears. Andrew Jackson was moving the Cherokee Indians out of Georgia by force. The federal court said, President Jackson, you can't do that. And he said, well, come down here and stop me. See, the Supreme Court doesn't have a sword. They can't enforce their decisions. They rely on the executive, which is the president, to enforce their decisions. Okay? Now, what could have Congress done? President Jackson impeached him because he was violating the law. But they didn't impeach him. 99.9% of the time, guys, when the Supreme Court makes a decision, our governments tend to follow it. There are rare occasions where they ignore the courts. Very rare. Okay? And Jackson is one of the only examples I can cite. There. Okay? So.
Andrew Jackson was a badass.
He's definitely an interesting cat. Okay. All right. He was a badass, yeah. Okay, general jurisdiction, special courts of appeals. Okay, U.S. Supreme Court. I have that writ of certiorari on page 54. Okay, so four of the justices want to hear the case. They submit a writ of certiorari. Okay. All right. Then we move over to state trial courts, very similar to the federal district courts in the sense that it's the court of record. They keep track of this. They have a transcript of it. And your state trial courts, you can appeal up the chain. Okay. Page 56, State Court of Appeals, State Supreme Court just talked about that. Let's go over to 57. Page 57. Now this is like stuff I'm not really familiar with. Okay, these associate circuit courts, I'm not really sure what's going on there. Like I said, every state is different. Okay, so like these here minor criminal cases, okay, or cases involving less than $25,000. Okay, it's probably just a system that is just more efficient. Okay, because our courts get backlogged with a lot of cases. Okay, so this was probably created to try and reduce that backlog of litigation. Okay, and then you have your city or municipal court. Okay, and I learned something else here. Okay, cities typically have courts that administer their ordinances, right? Ordinances, okay, like Sebastian's ticket he got for his subwoofers. Okay, now. These usually divided into traffic and non-traffic divisions. As city ordinances often overlap with or duplicate state laws, less serious violations occurring within city limits are brought before such municipal courts for their first trial. That would be original jurisdiction. The result then can be appealed to the state trial court level if necessary. Although the penalties for violating ordinances can be severe, ordinances are not considered criminal laws. Only state and federal governments can make an act criminal. I did not know that. So the ordinance that a city has, like you have to turn off your music down at 10 o'clock at night. It's your house or your apartment or what have you. Those are not criminal. Okay? Now you can be fined, but you can't go to jail. Okay? Does that make sense?
Could that be considered like disorderly conduct or something like that? Like, could they stretch it?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, yeah. Stretch it to a state charge, you know. Yeah, I mean, if you go with a police directive or something like that, yeah, disorderly conduct. Yeah, so that's pretty interesting. So you got small claims courts, that's Judge Judy, usually $2,500 or less involved. Okay, then your juvenile courts, which we've already kind of talked about. Okay, and that kind of closes that out, that chapter. Okay, so yeah, this is it's not super complicated, but it just sometimes needs to be explained to you how this works. Okay, and you know, so for what I'm going to do at some point when I find time. I'm gonna come up with a little test, okay? And it'll be like a mostly matching test, okay? Something like that, okay? And I'll have a lot of these terms, okay? And I'll give you a review sheet to know what terms to study. All right, and we'll just have us a little test, okay? Over the first 3, okay? Tomorrow, my plan, Thursday, is to finish that marketing slideshow I have. I've got about 6 slides left, okay? And then Friday, I want to reserve again, maybe we'll go to the library again, okay? And we're going to be productive. Probably what I'll do just to help you be productive is give you an outline to start filling out. Okay? And I'll print those off. You guys can go to the library and work on filling out that outline for your businesses. Okay? Does that sound like a plan?
Yep.
Rock and roll. Okay. Homework. I'm gonna collect these. I'll get them back to you. He left it at home. You guys passed forward and over.
So I did my research last night on the City League title.
Oh, yeah. When's the last?
One other team has won in Northwest Beach Hill in 1996.
Oh, Northwest Carolina. 99? Okay.
Only time other
Yeah.
City League schools.
Northwest, Northwest had a pretty good team last year. Pretty good again.
Yeah, they didn't lose anyone
Oh, none, huh?
on that play.
Do you know if Ava's healthy? I know she got a pretty